I think I've destroyed my marriage. My wife refuses to see me or speak to me. Hi guys, I'm not even allowed to know where my wife is. I don't know if this goes here or not, but I made a friend at the gym. We got on well, and the friendship started to translate outside of just being gym buddies. We regularly hung out after work or after the gym, and it was nice having a friend I could spend time with. Almost 3 weeks ago, I invited him over to my house to have dinner with me and my wife. My wife and I cooked dinner, and at some point her sister-in-law called asking if her 3-year-old son left his alligator socks at our house as he refuses to breathe until he gets it back, and he did leave it at ours. So my wife decided to drop it off. While my wife was away, David arrived. All was going well until my wife got back home and saw David. She just suddenly started screaming, and I mean she was letting out some blood-curdling screams. She was just shouting for David to get out and waving a knife around. David left, and I tried to ask her what happened, but she honestly couldn't talk as it seemed like she was having a stroke or a heart attack. So I called for an ambulance, and she was admitted at the hospital for having a severe panic attack. She was hospitalized for 3 days, and she did not speak the entire time to literally anyone. On her release date, she just left, and no one would tell me where she was. I've called everyone we know, and no one will speak to me or tell me where she is. Then finally, her sister texted me a long text that was full of expletives, but it did explain what I did wrong. David was the man who took her hostage for 9 days when she was 12 and then stalked her for 7 years until he went to prison for another crime. I mean, my jaw fell to the ground. I knew all about this as she had told me about it from the beginning. I just don't know how I didn't recognize him. I don't know how to fix this. She just refuses to see me or speak to me, and I don't even know where she is now. Answering some repeatedly asked questions. Yes, I called the police, but according to them, he hasn't committed a crime. I invited him into our home, and it's not illegal to give someone a fake name or to befriend me. Yes, I've seen pictures of him. I just forgot. I don't know how I forgot what he looked like, but I forgot nonetheless. I saw pictures of him in his late 20s, and I saw like 3 prison pictures of him taken in 2017, 2018. Yes, he does look different now from those pictures, but not enough for me to not recognize him. I really don't have a reasonable excuse for not recognizing him. It is clear that David had planned this. He clearly befriended me to get to my wife. He also gave me a different name than his real name. I don't know where my wife is as I am not trusted. I'm not allowed to know. Her family and friends have completely frozen me out. People have literally changed numbers and privated their social media. I mean, this isn't their first rodeo with this man. My wife was keeping track of him, but he was released earlier from prison, but the records were not updated, so we both were under the impression that he was still in prison. But he was released early December last year, and he went straight back to stalking her. And I let him into our lives, her private space. Of course, I regret my actions. I wish I recognized him earlier on, but I didn't. I don't know why I didn't. At the time of the rape and imprisonment, he was 22 and she was 12. She knew him through his stepbrother, a fellow student. David had his own place, and it kind of was the party house where all the kids went to. So he was the cool guy who hung around the preteens and teens, who he also sold drugs to. Her family did try to get it to go to court, but it was dropped by the prosecutors. He also claimed she was his girlfriend and that she had run away from home. It was also known that she had a crush on him at the time, and his lawyers twisted it up to fit his claim of her being his secret girlfriend. It was a combination of slut-shaming due to her having had a crush on him and having visited his home on her own accord, lack of physical evidence, her inability to speak on the stand as she was too traumatized, her vulnerable home life, and the unwillingness of the prosecutors to go after him. The stalking was taken slightly serious at the time, and he was ordered to stay away from her, but he repeatedly broke the order. The one time he was punished by the judge, he was only given a few days in jail. So he just continued to stalk her for years until he was arrested for another crime. I'm posting an update because I don't want to leave all those people hanging who texted me if my wife came back or contacted me. No, she hasn't come back yet. I received a text from an unknown number from her yesterday, almost a month after she left my house, and she said she was sorry for the way she had reacted, but she did it for her own safety. She said she could not stand looking into her rapist's plus kidnapper's eyes as it brought back memories she never wished to revisit. So she just escaped from the hospital after her discharge and was in complete shock the following days. I told her she could have called me earlier or at least let me know she was safe wherever she was. She said it was a fight or flight response or something like that. She had been vigilant about David all these years, and she was under the impression that he was still in jail, which was true. She had no idea he was out now and plotting to get back at her through me. She first thought I did this on purpose because she had shown me his pictures from a few years ago and also when he was a 20-something. I told her that I would never do something like that. I had seen his pictures, but I couldn't connect the face with a person I befriended at the gym. All of this conversation after almost a month was going on over text, so I asked her if I could call her. She said okay. I called her and we talked about how she was and when she would come back home. To this, she got a bit sad and said she was anyway living under constant paranoia that her stalker would track her down someday, and the worst case scenario happened. He had befriended her husband and was in their house. So I asked her why her family had blocked me out too, and was she never going to come back? She hung up on me after a few sniffles. I don't know what to do. I was not involved with David in any way. I had no clue who he was and how he was trying to spy into our lives. Everything was great in our lives prior to that night, and we were even trying for a baby. Now she is not sure if she wants to come back or not. A lot of you have inquired about David and like what happened after my wife left the hospital. Honestly, I had no clue until I did a bit of digging and found out from hospital authorities that David was at the hospital the night before the day of her discharge. He was there to see her and told the receptionist that he was my wife's husband's brother. She called up my wife's mom to confirm if she could send him upstairs to the room, and her mom panicked. She clearly knew I had no brother and no cousin would turn up without notice because we hadn't told anyone about the episode at my house. Only her parents, me, and David knew. So her mom told her dad, and they both asked for security to be tightened on their floor, especially her room, and no visitors were allowed, not even me. The next morning, before I could reach the hospital, they had completed all the formalities and left. They went straight to my father-in-law's sister's house in another town about 7 hours from where I am based. They didn't even stop to complain to the cops or pick their stuff from home or in the least inform me. I feel like a fool now. I'm sorry that the update is getting too long, but so much has been happening, guys. I'm at a loss now for what to do. I miss my wife, but I am more concerned about her safety. It's all right if she feels safer without me, but she needs to let this fear go at some point. We can't be without each other forever unless she decides to divorce me or something. But what's my fault in all of this? I feel unheard, unseen, and almost suddenly like no one in her life and her decisions. About David, he blocked me too after leaving my place that evening. I was just a pawn in his plan. I wish I could have smelled trouble sooner. I lost my wife and an apparent good friend in a span of a few days, and I am all alone. I have a few very good friends that telling them about this would mean I need to open up about my wife's rough past too, and my wife, and I have made a pact to never let anyone know. She didn't want people to pity her or think negatively about her, like she brought this upon herself. She liked that guy, and when she found it convenient, she called it rape. So I decided to keep my issues to myself. Even her family was acting weird. I mean, you can trust your son-in-law to protect your daughter after being together for 6 years. I wish they were in touch with me and gave me routine updates about my wife. All I do these days is go to work, come back home, eat ready-to-eat meals or take out, and cook and clean and do my laundry on weekends. The first fortnight was so bad that I would sleep in my office clothes without changing and barely eating anything after work. I miss my wife so much. I deserve to be heard and given a fair chance at this. If my wife doesn't contact me again with something positive, there will be no more updates here, guys. Thank you so much for all your encouragement and support. I wish no man is ever put in a similar situation because it sucks when you are ghosted by the person you love the most, and that too for no actual fault of yours. I get it. I should have let my wife know in advance who was coming as she is always so paranoid and vigilant about her safety, but I didn't and I regret it, and this could cost me my beloved wife. I said I would update if there was any positive development in my life, but I hate to admit there have been none. This update is for all those concerned people who have frequently asked me if I was doing well, and I didn't have the energy to reply separately to all, so I am doing this final update and moving on with my life. In fact, I have already moved on in many ways. I am focusing on my health and well-being. I'm meeting my friends whom I didn't have a chance to hang out with earlier. I'm not saying I couldn't do all these things before when my wife was around too. It's just that I feel so lonely, I feel it's better to immerse myself in something worth my time. It's been 38 months since my wife was discharged from the hospital. What I'm about to tell you is something you would not believe, but it is very much true. My aunt who lives in the same town has a son who is very close to me. He texted me this a couple of days ago that my wife is happy. She is with David. I told him that was impossible. She was scared to death of that guy. She would not even allow him near her, and there was definitely some misunderstanding. But I was still sad that she had moved on and was with someone else. He sent me their photos yesterday. David has moved to that town too. Everyone knows him. My cousin revealed the following to me. David is the pillar of the community in less than a year. He retains a strong moral character and a sense of duty to others, almost sickeningly consistent and unbreakable. He stops to help the elderly. He'll help fix your motor up any day. He leads the charity hikes through the local woods. He cooks a mean roast, one the whole town over has indulged in once or twice, either having been invited to his humble 3-story homestead or attended one of the many cooking competitions he's competed in. He said he is a good guy, a sweet guy, the same guy who raped my wife almost a decade ago. He befriended my wife somehow. I think she would feel safer finally if she gave in to him. After all, he is obsessed about her. She never reported him, but instead started hanging out more with him. No one would suspect what had conspired between these 2 years ago. Despite the bruises, despite all the plans she tried to concoct, it was impossible to seek justice. The town's small police force adores him. There is an authority in his voice. The whole town at large, arguably, would not believe her for an instant if she said that David of all people had done something to her. Besides, she is an outsider. She moved into the area only recently, intending to work remotely and enjoy the countryside. The locals trust him more over her, even though they both came to that town almost at the same time. He knows this, so he does it again and again and again. The worst part is, as more evidence emerges, as the hickeys slip past her scarves, as people see the two spending time together, the rumor mill churns out a tale that can't be further from the truth, that they are involved, physically, falling for one another. The perfect couple. I should have stopped making sense of my marriage and my wife the day she left me without a word. No message, no call, she just ghosted me out of her life. It feels as if she always intended to be with him, but was held back by me and our marriage, by the fact that I knew what he had done to her. I'm ending this post and going to see a therapist soon. It's easy to write this and for you to read it and forget about it. But the fact that my wife left me out of fear that her stalker had found her again after years, and she's involved with that same stalker today, is something that will haunt me for the rest of my life. I know I didn't do anything wrong now for sure. I haven't gone and checked personally about whatever my cousin revealed because I don't want to, and the pictures that he sent had my wife. Sorry, ex-wife sitting and sipping a drink with David. So I guess the rest of the things he claimed are also true. I don't know, man. Thanks so much for reading. I'll be okay.